Alright, so I think I'm going to make another video for the group, tarot group that I'm in. And I feel like the last two I did weren't to the best of my abilities, I think. Well, I don't think I gave proper explanation as to the whole reading that I do for myself, which would include these cards and these. So, I don't know, it feels like I have this desire to do it, and I have this philosophy of keeping myself busy. I don't like to watch TV. I don't like to get distracted with things that bear no consequence on my life, that don't have a significant consequence, rather. So don't watch TV, don't interact with too many people when it doesn't hold any real bearing on what it is I want to be doing. So most of my time is spent thinking of things to do, in the future when I'm ready to do the things. Can't do the things when you're not ready to do them. It's essentially where my mind gets caught up. So there are several events that I am kind of, I don't know, waiting on, but things I need clearing, to need some guidance on, to clear them out of my head so that I can progress in what it is that I'm trying to do. And most of my time is making videos like this to get over the fear of making the videos. So I make a lot of them. It's like a therapy, almost, way to talk to somebody without having to get any kind of judgment. It's like I use it as like a therapy. It's like talking to somebody, but there's nobody there. So I figured if I was going to be doing this today, I might as well make it productive. So, like I was saying, there's a few things that are on my mind, that are going on in my life that I want to kind of clear up, or maybe think of different ways of categorizing them and going through them in my mind and trying to reconcile them, I think is the best way to say that. And for some reason, the previous videos that I made doing this, I feel like I kind of rushed through it a little bit, and right now I have some time to do a better explanation, I think. So that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm doing now is obviously shuffling. I don't have a ritual, which I think I mentioned before, in regards to shuffling. I talk, and then when I'm done shuffling, I'm done shuffling. It doesn't really play a role with me. I don't feel the need to ask for guidance or talk to anybody or do anything. Just my philosophy. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. It's just my personal way. That's it. So, I was trying to think if there's anything else I want to say before I start putting them out. I know last time I did this, one of the last times I did, I end up talking most of the time. But that's just me. I like talking a lot. A lot. Alright. So, I know what it is that I want to know. So, I will see if the cards reflect that. And if not, I'm sure it'll be something relevant to what is going on in my mind in regards to the things going on in my life. So, put a little more time into this and do the spread, do the little story, explain how it relates, and then I will use the demon cards to clarify each individual one and hopefully come up with different perspectives that I may not have thought of at first. Maybe, hopefully, come up with different solutions for the things I'm thinking, the things that are going to be far up in my mind. Because there's no one single thing that I'm thinking of. There's quite a few. And what I'm going to do is rely on the cards to help me pinpoint the thing that I need to know the most right now. I think that makes sense. Most people, they ask a question based on what they want to know. My philosophy is to let the universe tell me what I need to know through my personal interpretation of what I see in the cards. There's nothing too crazy right now. So far, got the Six of Wands, the Sun, the Ace of Pentacles, Two of Wands, Father of Pentacles. I hate Pentacles so much. They always mess me up. And the Empress. Needs you to spell out. Three of Wands and the Seven of Wands. Yeah. I wouldn't normally keep these out, I would put them back, but I think everything happens for a reason. The Three of Wands makes me think of people. It's like the specific image in my head. I know that the card has a meaning, but I'm saying that when I look at this one, it makes me think of, I know what the card means, I base that meaning of what I know the card means to what it shows me in my head. What I'm seeing in my head are people working together for a common vision, coming together to create something, or maybe even support for someone who is creating, which I find relevant to myself because I'm trying to create a life for myself that is, I want to use the word congruent, but I don't know if that's the right word, that is relevant to what I want. A vision of where I see the future. I have a vision of the future. See, it's a vision. But it's a difficult thing to do alone, so in the most recent past, I've been working on a support system to help get me there. And it's through, this was the other one that fell out, the Seven of Wands. It's through illuminating the darkness. Well, see, now this one, this particular image of this deck, I see one person illuminating, shining the light on several others. And what I mean is that a person almost acting as a guide to others, or those others forming a support group for each other and their own personal visions. I like that interpretation. But that's what it, see now that's what it conjures in my mind. Whether other people see it that way is irrelevant to me. Because like I said, the cards, my theory, which I'm sure is not so much of a theory as much as just I'm just wording a concept, is that those two cards that I pulled, though my interpretation of them was one thing, you would have seen something else. They would have brought something else to your mind, something specific. And maybe though the words I used may not have been the ones that you were thinking, but perhaps the words I used conjured images in your mind that were relevant to it, not specific to it. Okay. And then the bottom, we have the death. This all seems to make some sense. So it's the Six of Wands. Six? Or seven? Six. The Sun. The Ace of Pentacles. Two of Wands. Father of Pentacles. The Empress. Death. So I'll go through those. Kind of, as best I can, go through one by one. I'm just explaining the processes that are going through my head as I'm looking at them. So take that as you will. Not everyone is going to do this the same way. And I'm curious how other people do it, because I've seen a couple of you do it, and it's not the same as me. At least I don't think it is. And I'm curious if it is, because that's the whole point of all these things I'm doing. To the six. There's some sticks that are stuck in a rainstorm with a rainbow above them. And I've had this card in one of my previous videos, and what this says to me is if I pause, it's because I'm trying to find the right words. Because I have the concept in my head, it's just the wording that's different, because not everyone uses the same words to explain the same things, so I'm trying to think of the most general way to put it. But this person, or persons, is coming out of a dark place that they've been in for possibly a little bit. Maybe they're starting to see the end of the rain, the end of the storm, the end of that internal struggle, and beginning to see the light at the end, represented here in the rainbow. Because those dark situations, they seem endless at times. But there's always an end to them. Not many people realize that. Some people, they dwell so much on the dark clouds, they forget that there's a sky behind it. That makes sense. Or a sun behind it. The sun, Leo card. I love Leo cards. Leo. But this card, sometimes I don't look at it as always I don't always get into the astrological aspects of them. Sometimes it depends. Leo ones I do. Probably just because I'm biased. I see this as, in astrology, what is the sun? The sun is the ego, it's the self, it's the image that you portray. It's also, the sun represents truth, life, wisdom, knowledge, understanding. It's almost, for all intents and purposes of this particular reading, I'm taking it as the end of the storm. That this is assurance. This is saying, hey, yeah, might be a little crummy at the moment. And you can define crummy however you see fit. But it will end. There's always an end. Everything always ends. Which I think is going to be shown in that death card. But once the storm is over, the light will come out and illuminate your path. I love saying the word illuminate. I love it so much. But also at the same time, coming out of those dark spells, learning the lessons of why we're going through them, because there's always a lesson to be learned through every experience that we have. The ones in relationship-wise, the ones personally, the ones professionally, well, it's all the same, but just different. If that makes sense. There's a lesson to be learned to do the thing better the next time. And that's what I see here is, yeah, this sucked. But what you need to do is learn the lesson. Why did it turn into this? Why did it go from this to this? That you have to come back to this. Does that make sense? Because everything comes in cycles. You have the good, which flows into the bad, which goes into the good, which goes into the bad. But good and bad are subjective. When you look at them as in black and white, when you look at them in a different perspective, when you take a step back, take yourself out of the good and bad scenario and just look at them as two scenarios, you'll notice that they're really the same thing. That you have these dark periods because you need to learn how to appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. It does to me. And when you get there, when you have that clarity, that illumination, and you have learned the lessons and you're ready to progress, this is that laying of a foundation. I don't see this as a coming of things to you. I see this as a opportunity. An opportunity to create the foundation to build what you want. That idea. When you realize that you've grown from this experience. You've learned your lesson, you've grown. It's represented here. And that growth you want to start creating the image of what you want, your foundation. Because you have some knowledge now of where you were, where you don't want to be, and where you want to go. And that's what I see here as a path. Knowledge of that path that you want to go, that you're basing off of this foundation. Now this is where it gets a little tricky because I hate this guy. The Father of Cups. Sometimes I see it as a person, sometimes I see it as a mentality, but the King Father aspect represents fire and Pentacles, physical world. Sometimes I have a hard time marrying those two ideas at the same time to see where they fit. I know the book standard idea, this guy's like a boring guy, not boring, but grounded, more in his head. more of a planner, more of a knows what he wants, knows where he wants to go, but doesn't necessarily know how to get there. Not the go-getter type. Or maybe the reason I have a hard time relating is because my concept of how to move forward in life is not the same as his. That's why this guy always confuses the shit out of me. Because I see him as more of a almost like my opposite. Boring. Not so much of a talker. More of a planner, I guess. Smart though. Intelligent. Could be a person, again, just because it's a man on the card doesn't mean it necessarily represents a man. It could be anybody. I think it just represents someone who is capable of embodying these characteristics. Which could be anybody. Even you. Because there's a philosophy in some of the mystical traditions with astrology that the zodiac and all the elements which represent the different personality types and egoic traits that we have, that I'll call it the fool's journey because it's probably the most relevant name for it that I think people in the group will understand. In that, during the journey, aside from overcoming the physical obstacles of life, in that growth of consciousness, because ultimately that's what I perceive the fool's journey as, is that that evolution of human consciousness, the hero's journey, I think it's also called, where the fool begins his journey and comes back around the whole loop to become the fool again, to utilize or implement the lessons that he learned on the first way around, and then continue that journey throughout existence, his existence. And look at this guy as just another stage in that. Because to truly understand who you are and who you want to be, you gotta try everything. So I think. And to me personally, maybe this is the universe telling me to cool the fuck down, take it down a notch. Which makes sense, given the next card being the Empress. Is my personal way of doing things is Leo. I'm like fucking a million miles a minute all the time. Always talking, always moving. Though my bed is comfortable, I need to be like constantly all over the place. It's a really not a bad habit. It's just exhausting. But this is probably where I need to be closer to kind of taking a step back and enjoying the things that are around me for what they are right now, while I continue building my foundations. Because ultimately I do want to create I'm not using that, a fruitful existence in the future for myself and the people I find myself involved with. Now I know that the Empress is more than just that. Creation, which is ultimately what we're talking about. The tree trunk growing into this beautiful big tree, which produces life, air. Little nature creatures make it their home. It's place of safety and life. It's an interesting concept when you really try to expand on it in your mind. Now, I think we get the point of that. So, I think it's actually quite interesting. So what I just detailed is kind of what I'm basically going through in my life right now. Is that I'm coming out of this dark period, which has been going on for a very long fucking time, and throughout this dark patch, there has been these minor sets of illumination that have come through to help me focus my thoughts on a foundation I want to make, a basic foundation. Lots of little branches, lots of little intricacies that go into it, not just one solid piece of wood. Because there's all those grains in the tree, there's all those layers that are involved in making this thing. But by having all of this, I refer to myself as we sometimes. It's a whole weird thing. It's a long story. But I also mean it as the general we, as people, can use those branches and these paths and these layers to formulate a specific path. And the specific path doesn't mean just one path, because you can change the road anywhere you go at any time you want, however you want, but you have to put the work into it. Once you have that kind of basic idea, because everything kind of starts off trying to do all this stuff, and slowly and surely it narrows itself down into where you want to go. And it gets to a point where all this work requires a man, someone who can just go all over the place. You need to be able to think and move around and do all the stuff. So that when it's time to start trimming some fat, it makes it a lot easier. But you have to come through it in a calm, centered, grounded space, still understanding where things need to go, how to place things around, but maybe not being so active. And this eventually building up this tree, slowly but surely making your way up. And ultimately, like I was saying, with the Fool's Journey, is that you start at the Fool and work your way around till you come back to the beginning. It's like getting to do the beginning over, but with all the superpowers that you gained from the first way around. And in doing that, we end one cycle and begin a new one to start the journey all over again. Do you see that? Or is it just me? Does that make sense? It makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe, I don't know if I'm explaining it the right way or if I'm not. But I think this is a very profound reading, for me at least. In my head, I see it grander in my mind. Because I know that words can only express so much. You can only paint so much of a picture with paint. It's without actually looking at something. It's a little bit harder. So with that, I mean, like I said, it means something to me. Hopefully it means something to you. I'm going to play with the demon cards and just go through and specify a couple things. Show you how I do that. And I'll put a little bit more time into these cards too, because I really fucking love these. These are more, I use these for like, how do I do it? I used to use these alone, and I used to treat my readings like therapy sessions. And the theme behind the card, I would ask questions based on what I thought would be a relevant question to someone. Okay, so, for instance, This guy. I love this guy. I don't know how to pronounce that. Myself-Pt1. So these cards, each one has a demon. Each demon represents something, a concept. I take the concept and then I look to the person or to myself and go, well, how is that relevant? What's a relevant question to that? So this guy, he is a guide of sorts, that he finds stray travelers in the woods and he guides them back onto the path. Sometimes he fucks around with them and he brings them deeper into the woods and gets them lost. I mentioned this in the last video I did with these guys, but I rushed through it. Though demons, people get this bad impression of them. You have to understand that good and bad perspectives. Good for me is bad for you. What's bad for you is good for me. You know what I mean? It's all depends on how you see things. So yeah, he's a trickster, and he can bring you into the woods and get you lost, but he's also got the capability of bringing you back onto the path. What that path is for you individually, that's up to you to decide. Spiritual path, the path in life, I don't know what other paths there are. It's like, what I envision as someone lost off of the spiritual path, because that's ultimately where I'm going with this, is someone getting caught up in the outside world, getting caught up in that construct of what I consider to be control, the work, bills, life, just the crap, everyday crap that people go through, which it's normal stuff. It's what everyone goes through. But when you get so caught up in it, you forget where you were trying to go in the first place, because you start to notice, this isn't what I was planning on. I don't even know where this came from or why it's even still here, because I wanted to be there. So this guy is he grabs you by the hand and just says, oh yeah, it's this way, come on, let's go. So what I would do is, so with this card, if I pulled this for somebody, and obviously for myself, I know when I'm off, and if this card comes up, I go, oh my god, either one or two things are going to happen. I'm either going to figure out what I'm doing wrong and shift myself back to where I need to be, or maybe even somebody is going to be coming into my life that could use some guidance, because I used to do that a lot. I talk to a bunch of people, and they come to me with stuff, and whatever. It's actually kind of fun. But that's how I look at this guy. So that's just an example. So if I was doing this for somebody, I would ask them, like, if they were kind of lost, almost. Let me see. Doing a little fun game since we're doing this. So I would ask if maybe there was someone new in your life, someone that you thought may be lost, someone that you think may possibly help you. What is it that you think you need help with? What do you think they need help with? Do you think that you're capable of giving them the help that they need? Do you think they're capable of giving you the help that you need? Do you even need anyone's help? Why do you not trust yourself to bring yourself back? Why do you think you need someone else to pull you that way? See, it's that line of questioning that I like to incorporate sometimes, because I feel that the cards can tell you what's going to happen, but ultimately you're going to mold your own path. And essentially that guy, he's you. He's your own personal guide, and here trying to steer you back sometimes, once in a while, we get that concept in personified form, in the form of another person. But ultimately, we are our best guides. Sometimes. Sometimes you just need a little kick in the ass. I've noticed that. So, that card doesn't count towards this. That was just an example. Sorry. So, back to what I was doing. So, I'm going to go through each one individually, and I usually do 2 of these, just to give me a better idea. I'll show you how that works. So, we have the 6 of Wands, the dark time, overcoming that dark period, which is coming to a close. See, first card, first demon, is Bereth. I don't know much about him, too much, but I know that he represents greed, not allowing your egoic greed to get the better of you, and to do the things that you know you shouldn't do. Because greed doesn't always mean money. Greed could be anything. Greed could be greedy with emotions, greedy with knowledge, greedy with anything, greedy with people. But for here, this dark period, I guess that plays a role in how it relates to me. Because I can relate this to several aspects of greed, and in being in these dark times and wanting to do certain things that you know you really shouldn't do. Not illegal stuff, per se. I mean, just things that you personally know, you know what, it's not my place. You can't force anything. You can't do things that you shouldn't be doing. That emotionally you know you shouldn't be doing. And what does that mean for me? I don't know. Just yet. Okay, and now it makes sense. That's what I like to do too. Because, yeah, this almost implies like I would be doing something that I'm forcing an action onto somebody. And in a sense, I think we can all relate to that the things that we do and the things that we say, almost we're trying to inspire motives and actions to others. Sometimes it comes off the wrong way as manipulation. That's a big one. People always got this fucking thing with, they always think they're being manipulated, because I know, because I always feel like that too. But now this one, Nekar, he's not just a demon. There's like a pack of them. They live in the water. They've been known to pull sailors off ships and drown kids. They also save people as well. They're nice guys and they're mean guys. It depends on the person, because honestly, the people that they pull off the boats and drown, and the kids that they eat, maybe karma was getting back at them for something. I don't know. But ultimately what this card represents is allowing and knowing that the greater forces of nature got your back, and that there's no reason to get greedy or to feel that you need to do more than what you're doing, because everything's under control. And this dark period is going to end very soon. And as long as you allow it to, naturally, allow rainbow to shine for you. Because once everything clears up, we'll have the illumination of the sun. So I'll pull a couple with that. I hope that worked, because I'm pretty impressed with that. This is me. It means a lot. It actually means something to me. I have my philosophies, my beliefs, in how the universe and karma and mysticism works. And that speaks volumes to me, in that I study things like that. I study things like karma. I try to see if it's real. People always said it. Like people always say, like, everything happens for a reason. Karma is kicking you in the ass. I always wondered what that actually meant, though. Like, what is it? What is it that's like making the things move and happen the way that they do? What's the reason behind it? And so what that's saying right there is that there's reason behind everything, and that you don't need to do more than what you are doing. That you're always going to do the right thing, because there are no mistakes. Mistakes are just opportunities to learn how to do it better the next time. And to trust that the universe is going to give you that next time. It's always going to give you the next time, as long as you recognize what it was that you did wrong the first time. Have faith, trust, and know that it's going to work out. So for the sun, interesting. Okay, this is an interesting one. So, the sun, like I was saying, Leo, that illumination of the brighter times coming to wash away the dark. Again, I mean, this could be a person. This could be a bright, shining light coming toward you. Could be revelations. Could be your own personal eureka moments. Could be what do I see in you? Because the reason I say that is because I got Forcus. I don't know much about him, but I know this card represents focusing on eloquence and grace and toning yourself down and dialing it down a notch a little bit, I guess. Or maybe not dialing it down. To my concept of eloquence and grace is possibly different from yours. I'm not picturing powdered wigs and Victorian robes. I'm thinking more of just being yourself. That's a concept of eloquence and grace that's easily overlooked. That we have a misconception of it, that we feel the need that it's a specific thing. I don't think it's a specific thing per se, in that it's specific to the individual as to what they consider to be grace and elegance. To some, it's tattoos and saying the word fuck a lot. And getting a little crazy. To others, it's powdered wigs and nice dresses and suits. But I think this is kind of saying to fine-tune that person that we're seeing here, that person that's growing from this. To fine-tune them into who it is that you want them to be, not what everyone else, what you want them to be. But then at the same time, because I'm glad we segued into this, he's a Dramalak, he's another demon, but quite relevant to this. So if we're going to look at the Sun card, like I said, I pull the demons to fine-tune what these mean. So now what I'm seeing is that first card was about overcoming the obstacles. Now this is the person who overcame them. This is that growth, that fine-tuning, I'm sorry. And then this is kind of like Andromelech. This is the cherry on top. This is once you figure out who you want to be, but this is, make sure that that's who you are. He is Satan's, he's the head of Satan's wardrobe. Just make sure that Satan has the best and finest clothing. But what the card represents is to make sure that the suit, the man makes the suit. That the man wearing the suit fits. If that makes sense. So I see that as this, we are now coming out of that growth period, fine-tuning ourselves to become exactly who it is that we're supposed to be, that we want to be, and making sure that it's in line with what we want as well. As I say sometimes that our wants and our needs are two different things. We want this, but we need this to appreciate this when we finally get it. But I think it's also possible to make your needs and your wants the same thing. This is a whole different story. I hope this is making some sense. I think it is. It's making sense to me. I think this is amazing. This is why I love doing these things, because it's such a meaningful thing for me, because these are lessons that I need to be learning. So the real purpose of me making this video is because I see a lot of people who they always say that they don't know how to do the cards for themselves, and they look for a little bit of guidance here and there. So I see this as a good opportunity for those who aren't so comfortable with doing themselves to kind of see how maybe I do it, because maybe it'll help. See, because my thing is, I know how to read for me. I'm not so good at reading for other people. See, now that's the thing. I don't know if I'm any good at reading for other people, because I don't know. I never believe anybody. I always think everybody's lying to me. I got like serious trust issue. It's like really fucked up. But there's a reason for that. But anyway. Alright, so next is the Ace of Pentacles. And I do two for the whole. And I know this is kind of pushing really long, but I figured if you're into it, you're probably in for the long haul. So. And if you're not, then you probably already checked out a while ago. And you didn't even hear me say that. Which is fine. Sometimes I just like shuffling. I don't know why. I find it very... Otherwise my hands are like all over the place. So I just do it as a thing to keep my hands occupied while I talk. Like chewing gum and walking at the same... I mean, trying to do two things at once. Alright, so the first one I pulled out for the Ace of Pentacles was Balin. Balin is, it's all about listening, not talking. Being the observer, not the observed. That maybe the foundation that you're striving for is already there. It's already there. You just need to sit back, watch the show, and just coast. Which is probably a valuable lesson for me, because I get very, like, I'm sure people that talk to me that, like, I come off strong. Like, I just have this thing where like, I just like to do the things that come to my mind as soon as they happen. And this is probably a very valuable lesson to me. Like, fuck, take a step back, dude. It's always there. Pay attention, because I like to talk a lot, so I always talk about me, because I don't know what else people like to talk about, because I don't do the things that other people do. I met someone recently, and we were talking for a little bit, but it turns into me talking about myself, because I don't know what the other person wants to talk about, but I forget to realize that sometimes people don't want to fucking talk. Sometimes they do this. Sometimes they just want to talk about themselves, which is fine. What's this one? Oh, get this guy again. All right. So here's what I'm getting, and this is what it's saying to me personally. All right, is this foundation's here. Just take it easy. You're doing a good job. Sit back. Be the ear. Be the observer. Watch. Listen. Don't be so much of the actor on stage. Be more of the manager. Yes? Does that make sense? That's not a literal term. Like the person in the background. Almost. The guide. Which is actually funny, because I met somebody the other night. I went out. And it was like so fucking weird. He was went out with my brother. I went to a casino. I hate fucking casinos. They're gross. I just hate greed. Monetary greed. I just like watching people lose their money. But I had met this dude. He's the fucking coolest dude I ever met in my life. He ended up ditching his family to come hang out with me and my brother. I'm really fucking awesome. It's just hard. It's just a long story. And but we were talking, and I noticed a lot of myself in him, like my past self. And though the stories were the same, the experience itself was the same. I mean, his life was different, but the experience, the events were similar. They were relevant. Relevant in that I was able to relate to him how I was able to overcome those situations and grow from them rather than let them hold me back. It was actually a really awesome experience. I love when I meet people like that. I notice that a lot when I go out. Is I bump into people, just random strangers, and you'd be surprised how much they need you just as much as you need them just at that moment. Because even though I'm older than him, and my growth through those experiences have put me in a different place, there were things that he experienced that I never did. That when he relayed his stories to me, I learned something from him at the same time, and figured out a way to utilize his knowledge joined with mine and come up with a whole new concept that I didn't think of before. So these guides, listening and being a guide for people, is not just... What did he say to me? He said he was very much into spirituality, but he couldn't be open about it because the people around him weren't as open about it as him. By spirituality, I mean, he had his own beliefs. Our beliefs weren't the same. It was just relating. And he had said something to me about being a leader. He said, I didn't want to be a leader. And I explained to him, there is no leader. What you do, by guiding someone, by talking to them, by being there for them, you're not leading them. You're all you're doing is showing them that they're not the only one. There are other people like you. They're not easy to find. They're actually all over the place. It's just a matter of saying the right thing to them. But you don't know what the right thing to say is until you hear them talk. Sometimes the right thing to do is just show a little bit of interest. It's like, is that why I even met him? He reminded me of like this fucking gangster. So me and my brother, we walked up to him, I was like, you're a very interesting looking dude. Hi, I'm Derek, this is Chris. It was neat because there was an interaction at that point, because I look weird. I don't look weird, but I dress different than people. I behave different than people. Going to a place like a casino, that's not my thing. I don't want to fucking get into that stuff. To me, it was like going to a zoo. I just wanted to see what people are like. And this one particular person just stood out. And it was a very interesting interaction that we all had based off of just the initial desire to even go to the casino that night, because I look at it like this. When I say everything happens for a reason, if I didn't go to the casino that night, I never would have met this person. I never would have met this person, I wouldn't be thinking the way that I am today. Because though we had only interacted for a few hours, those few hours had left an impression on me, as well as my brother, because we both had something to learn from the experience. Just as he had something to learn from the experience with us. It's a deeper connection than just, hey, how you doing? Let's go get some drinks and get laid. It's not that. It's being able to understand other individuals and to learn, to grow from their experience. It's very interesting. I don't know if many people understand that concept of what I'm explaining, but that's what I'm getting from this. It's very, very profound when you really take the time to explore what it is that we're capable of, and what we're capable of learning from other people. I look at it like this: same soul, different body, different experiences. You can't do everything, so you have to rely on the other ones to teach you the shit that you don't know or don't want to experience. Learn from other people's mistakes. And integrate those lessons into your own life, if that makes sense. I have a very unique view on life, I think. I don't know. I don't talk to many people. Alright, so, Two of Wands. This is our path. So, we realize so far that the universe has got our back. We don't really need to do too much else. We're fine. We just need to really fine-tune it, who we are, based on what we believe, what we think. We embody the truth of who we are, so that we can, right now, be the person that others may need us to be, and allow those people to be the people that we need them to be, so that we can further our growth and fine-tune this path that we're trying to go down. The next card is Amadeus. He's, this is going long, but these are how, Amadeus is this demon. He's a little unicorn guy. He just hangs out with his instruments because he has an invisible orchestra that follows him around wherever he goes. And some legends say that you can hear his orchestra playing when you're in the woods, in the wilderness, the swaying of the trees, the wind blowing. It's actually his orchestra playing. So when I look at this card, the book says it's about music and all this other crap, but what I see is, yeah, you know what, maybe it is about music, but I also look at that wind, that sound, as the static in our minds, the static that we get caught up in, the baggage, the overthinking, well, not the overthinking, but yeah, the avoidance of overthinking, because I think overthinking is a very valuable tool to overcome things and clear out the baggage in our heads. But that's and then this helps do that because Because what we're doing is we're trying to clear out all that fog, trying to narrow down what it is that we want, where we want to go, based on everything that we've been building so far. And by taking that step back and just allowing everything to prosper around us, to grow from the seeds that we've planted and are nurturing. This may not be guiding, but this is not being a guide, but being a nurturer of some sort. What those seeds are, nurturing that life to grow, which will help us clear out the static, to fine-tune the noise into a beautiful orchestra that'll help us find our path. Now, I like this one too. This is doing very well. Sorry if it's taking long. Oh. Next is Skox. Skox is it's quite relevant to this as well. About planning, quick thinking, being able to readjust yourself when the situation calls for it. It's about knowing where you're going, having your path, but being able to quickly shift lanes if you need to, being able to prepare yourself for unforeseen obstacles that may get in the way, or maybe even, not always obstacles, but perhaps even new opportunities and new paths that may have been overlooked the first time, but now that you're going down this road, you may go, oh, let me make a detour. Let me make a detour, because maybe that way's a lot better. And worst case, I can always, maybe not do a U-way, but maybe I can find another way back. Because there's not always just one way. There's an infinite amount of directions that we can all go. And I think what I did with the first demon card explanation I did, which I ended up speaking during the whole thing, was talking, is I was saying how a lot of us are stuck in the mentality that there is only one bad way to go, that you just have to sit back and let everything happen and just hope that the bad shit doesn't happen, but the bad shit keeps happening. And that's what I was saying, to allow yourself to experience what that really means to you. Like what does that mean? Everyone says, oh, it's going to be bad, this isn't a good time to do this, but what does that mean? Why? Because you need to understand, because if you just think everything's bad and things are just, there's no control over anything, why do you think that way? Have you never tried to put a little bit of control into it? Or maybe put too much control into it. Maybe that's your problem. Maybe you just need to let go of a little bit of control. Like Bareth, Six of Wands, and Nakar were saying, to release some of that control of what it is that you are trying to do, because maybe you're forcing something, you're getting a little too greedy with what you want. I'm not talking about money. That you just need to let go and realize that things are going to work out exactly the way that they need to for you to get where you need to go, so that you could start forging this path. Because it doesn't just fall into your lap. It doesn't just manifest. You have to put some work into it. Yeah, there are outside influences that you can influence, inspire, nurture, but ultimately, if you're so focused on what you don't want to be, you forget who you are right now, who you're supposed to be, the real you that knows what this path is, that knows that this path is multi-laned, it's multi-directional, it's up, it's down, it's left, it's right, it's in fucking loop-de-loops if you want it to be, it's however you want. But you need to get the fucking noise out. You need to get the noise out, and you need to know what it is, where you're going, and that you can turn at any time. And really, that's it. That you have the opportunity to turn at any time you want. Even right now. At the second. Because no one gets to dictate what your path is except for you. They can make you think they can, but no one can. And knowing that, you have to ask yourself, well, if I'm not on the path that I want to be on and no one's holding me back, then what's holding me back? If I'm the only person holding me back, then why am I allowing myself to do that? It's if you're in that situation. Because that statement's just as relevant to me as I'm sure it is to many other people. But I think a lot of people, they forget to ask that question, though. And if they do, they get scared of the answer. Because it can be scary. It's very scary to start exploring yourself and to explore yourself and see the things that are really haunting you inside your head. Because ultimately, a lot of the stuff that holds us back is just made up in our minds. If any of that's resonating, then I really suggest you check out my YouTube page, because I talk about this shit all day. This is a passion project for me, is to understand the consciousness and how it correlates with what we call the divine or the universe or whatever the hell you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. And how these cards and astrology and all this other cool shit like magic fucking all just comes together to create everything around us and these wild experiences like this. Because again, I don't know if any of what I'm saying is resonating with you, but what you're witnessing, at least, is what the people around me refuse to see. I see this as magic. I see this as definitive proof that there is a greater purpose for perhaps me and everybody else that is involved in this existence. Just some of us fail to see it. And I think that these cards are an excellent way to get people back on their path. So, we're on to the King of Father of Pentacles, King of Pentacles, whatever you want to call it. And what did I say? This is kind of like my antithesis, the boring version of me, sitting back, quiet, not talking, just thinking and planning, not losing the passion for what I'm working on, but to approach it from a different angle. Perhaps maybe that's what this is telling me, and maybe it's maybe the element, because maybe I'm overthinking it because I'm thinking of how to combine earth and fire, but maybe I should be thinking of this more as I should be looking at changing the way that I approach certain situations. What those situations could be anything. We'll find out when we clarify the Empress, but right now that makes a lot of sense to me, is that I need to calm down and approach things from that different aspect. Because now this is kind of relevant. The demon ball used to be a god a long time ago, but in some philosophies it still is. But this ball represents recognizing recognizing titles. What do I mean by that? The words may be scrambled at first, but there's a reason they're scrambled. I'm trying to find the right way of saying it. To beware of titles, to beware of focusing on gaining a title rather than being the embodying the concept of the title. when I started doing the cards at first, a lot of people used to, they used to say to me, like, you're not making money, you're not doing money. I never charged anybody. I couldn't do it. I couldn't, because the people I had worked with, I felt this was more of a humanitarian service to get people to start thinking about this crap that's in their head. So I would never charge. And what I had told myself was I wanted to first make sure that I was fully capable of everything before I charged people. I fucking hate money. It's a thing. I don't know. It's just weird. But that's just me. But that concept is kind of what I was thinking, is not calling myself a tarot reader, that let me reword this. I study the ancient philosophy of alchemy. It's part of my philosophy. A multitude of them. That's just one of them. And I'm in this alchemy group, which I thought was a good idea, but it was actually the worst idea I've ever had. Because most people, they think of alchemy, here's a little history lesson, so let me try this on a little bit more. A lot of people, they think of alchemy as transmuting lead to gold, making lead, taking out the impurities, and leaving themselves with a pot of gold, which in some respects, I guess, is a way of looking at it. But from the esoteric, mystical standpoint, it was about the mind. And exploring the mind and taking the mind apart, taking the impurities out of the mind. Lead is associated with Saturn. The individual, the base individual, was looked at as what was called the spiritually dead. Saturn being the planet of death and time, and what one would do is to look inside themselves, to break themselves apart, break apart the aspects of who they were, take out all the impurities, figure out what was making all the bad stuff bad, and putting everything back together again once you have that figured out. It's like the ultimate psychotherapy on yourself. It's a very interesting practice if you can grasp the symbolism behind it. And the irony is that the symbolism is sometimes mistaken as literal gospel. So this group that I had gone in, because I was hoping to find someone who looked at alchemy like I did. Not a single one did. They actually yelled at me. I fucking hate that. So it's always the thing about people. It's always about being right. They don't want to listen. I can't stand that. They used to. Anytime I would say something, they would just attack me. It's just, get out of here. And they would always say, well, alchemists always tell me. I always learn this from alchemists. I said, what alchemist have you ever met? An alchemist, true alchemist, you would not even know if you saw one if you walked by him on the street. How do they wear a fucking badge? And I look at that from like all aspects of things. It's like, if you're gonna be something, be it. It's you. Own it. 100%. And that's what this card kind of says to me when I say beware of titles. Beware of being saying that you are what you want to be. Don't say it. If you gotta say it, it means nothing. To show it, to embody it. That is what I consider being something. But I've also have been coming to this weird conclusion with people lately that certain people think like that and certain people don't. I think there's a certain class of people that speak through action, and then there are others who speak through literal terms. And when I say speak through action, I mean not always by doing stuff, but by saying things that are not literal. Like I do that. I have this habit of thinking in metaphorical terms, where I try to relate through concepts and ideas rather than saying words. My ex used to yell at me all the time that I didn't say I love you enough. I think I hear that a lot. I think a lot of women say that, but that's just, we're getting into a whole different thing. But I always thought, and I guess this is for the ladies out there that are watching this that probably relate to this. They go, oh my God, a husband says I love you. It's not about saying it. It's about showing it, I guess. Sometimes the translation gets mixed. It's a misinterpretation. Different languages. It's like, imagine someone from France coming over and saying good morning to you at night, and you didn't even realize, you don't even know what the hell they're saying in the first place. There's a whole miscommunication going on. But that's a whole, this isn't going to turn to a romance talk yet. So anyway, the Father of Pentacles that I'm establishing as this new personification of myself that I need to start integrating into myself. Because beware of titles, don't be so quick to rush into who you are. Explore it a little bit, because if you don't learn from the mistakes of what you're doing now, it's possible that you can turn into someone that you don't want to be. Now this is Rohovart. He's actually a giant. I don't know if you can see this, but is he on the little people? In a little basket? Got little people in there? Well, what he does is he travels around and he finds the curmudgeons, the grumps, the no good nicks, just the miserable pricks. He stuffs them in his basket and he drags them down to hell. So where I'm going with this is both a warning and an inspiration to look at the self. And I think this reading is very much so about looking inside, to explore what it is we want, what not to do to be that. Because we don't want to be someone we don't want to be, because what we've learned are lessons from the past. What were we back then? What were we back then that fucked us up, that got us to the point that we needed to change in the first place? And how do we not put those characteristics into who we want to be and turning back into that person? Because you want to do it the second time right. You want to fix it. You want to learn from the mistakes from our initial journey, integrate them, be them, and live them, so that we can have the life that we want, so we can create exactly what it is that we wish to create with whomever we wish to create it with. So I'll pull two with these. This is going really long, and I really appreciate it if you stuck around the whole time. It's really cool of you. I had a feeling it's gonna go this line. It's obviously we still got 2 cards left, so it's probably got another little bit. Now, granted, when I do them for myself, I usually do this in like 15 minutes. I don't normally go through all the explanation with myself. Probably should have prefaced that at the beginning. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so in building this life, this, you know, I'm just gonna say it because it's just, the word is like pounding in my head right now. I'm just saying, say it, say it, say it, say it, say it, and I don't want to say it because I hate the word. It's a long story. Abundance. If you want to make an abundant life, fuck, I hate that word. I don't know what it is. It's like when I hear those people, abundance, it just drives me fucking nuts. I don't know why. It's actually a long story. It makes me, it's a long story. But anyway, I digress. So in order to build this life of abundance that we want, we need to personify the person that we envisioned. We need to be that person. Wearing the suit, being able to plan. We need to integrate all of these aspects into ourselves, because these aren't just individual cards per se. I look at this like almost like a math equation, like 1 + 1 = 2. Like the first card plus the second card plus the third card plus the fourth plus the fifth, all the way through, that all of these are creating a very specific image of both a person and a experience itself. The thought process behind the person that is creating the experience. And this person, and I hope that's resonating with what I'm saying. So this person that we need to embody in order to achieve this is to be a strong-willed person that knows how to quickly plan, move around, jump from situation to situation, and adapt quickly, appropriately, and timely. Because these things aren't easy. This is a lot of work to do. This is not just something that you can sit back and wait for others to bring to you. This is something that you need to be it. You need to be what you want to be, and you will make it happen, but you have to know what it is that you want. But you can't do it alone, always. Depends on what it is that you're looking for. I don't believe that human beings are very good on their own. You can sustain, but you can only sustain for so long before it's time to, you need an outlet. And if you don't have an outlet, it stagnates in you, and you become bitter. But you can't be alone, because to create, you need to create for someone. And in order to create for someone, you need to know how to speak to people. And the reason I'm just even saying that is because this guy popped up, Andres. He's a tricky little fuck. He likes to mess with people. He likes to, the old magicians that would summon him, he would play games with them by trying to turn the apprentice against the master, vice versa, get them bickering. So what this card is saying is basically kind of it's hard to relate, but you'd have to know the more story behind him, which I don't know it off the top of my head well enough to explain it, so I'm just going to give you my personal interpretation of it, which is to not bite your nose despite your face when you talk to people. And I know you know what I mean, and it's having that eloquence and grace to be able to communicate to people the way that you need to communicate to them, so that they want to be a part of this. Because again, you can't do it alone. There is two aspects to creation, a positive and a negative, a male and a female. If you're familiar with the Hermetic principles, it's called the principle of gender. Also, I think some of the other traditions really get into this aspect of the two aspects of creation. That in order to create, there has to be two of something, an opposite and two opposites come together to create. You have a positive charge and a negative charge. When that is the creation. But what I'm saying is, in less mystical, abstract freaking terms, is to be able to speak with people, communicate with them, to not push them away. It's very easy to do that if you don't know the language that other people speak. When I say language, I don't just mean English. We can talk to 100 people on the street, and they're all going to talk a different version of what they perceive things as, and sometimes people use the same word to describe 100 different things. But I'm digressing a little bit. And actually, I'm not. Because I think that's an important thing to know as well, is that when you do speak to people, and I'm sure you've noticed it, that it's hard to relate to certain people about certain things because they don't grasp the concept like others do, you know? So this isn't really always about being a jerk to people. This is about knowing how to communicate with them, how to maybe not. I have a saying. I have lots of sayings. I love having sayings. But I have a saying that if you're talking to people and they're not listening, you're probably talking to the wrong people. Because when you're talking to the wrong people and they're not listening, what good are they doing? What are they enhancing your life with? What are they bringing to you? What are you learning from them? What are they learning from you? If you're not communicating properly and if you don't want what they're giving, what's the point? But now, which is interesting, relevant, because this guy Abigor is a general of hell. This card represents building a team, building relationships, being not so much a leader of sorts, but almost being not even a guide. But notice his hands. There's one hand. I said he's holding up. He has candles for fingers. It's like being that beacon, knowing how to talk to people and bringing them together and working together to do something. Now, that's not saying that you need to go out and you need to go find friends who are into the same thing as you, but what it means is what I'm getting from it is to fine-tune your path in a direction that you want to go, and to be communicating with the people that you want to be communicating with, because if you've been communicating with the wrong people your entire life, which is probably why you're not where you want to be exactly, then perhaps you're talking to the wrong people. And by talking to the right people, that'll help you further your journey into creating abundance. I hate that word. I don't. It leaves this. I think a lot of those people, those manifest people and law of attraction people, I think they're all phonies. It's my personal take on them. I don't like what they do, because I know what they're saying and they're leaving stuff out. Some of them, not all of them. The ones I've seen, they leave stuff out, and they have people under the impression that things work a way that they do not. And I say that with confidence. I say it with confidence because I know how it works for me. Now, does it work the way that they're saying for them? Absolutely it does. Absolutely, 100% it does. But they're leaving out a very important part for people. Which I have to do a little more investigation into before I can say that. I think they are. And the reason I say I think they are is because otherwise there'd be a lot more people like them. Just like when people ask me about when I talk about my philosophy on things and how I look at how I approach my perceptions of reality and the world around me. I was saying this to my brother the other day, is that if I think this way, I can't be the only one. So where are all the other ones? Maybe they're not here. Because when you're surrounded by people that are, you know what, let me rephrase a statement I made. This is not the opposite of me. This is absolutely not the opposite of me. The opposite of me is what's out there and in the real world. People who work 9-to-5s and they hate their wives and they hate their kids. They're so afraid to admit it to themselves. This is just a mentality that I need to do a little bit more rewiring in my my reprogramming process. I was having a discussion with myself earlier about doing just that. And I look at a lot of this work as reprogramming and recreating myself from the ground up and bringing myself back more into alignment with who I was, minus all of the impurities, if that makes sense. With the way I handle things in my life, people I associated with in my life, the ways I would conduct myself. But anyway, it's getting too much into human psychology, I guess. Well, I guess this is all about human psychology, is really ultimately what it is, because the cards, if people really need to know that badly about what it is that they do, they wouldn't be asking someone else. If you want my personal opinion, that's all these people. They go to psychologists, therapists. I laugh sometimes because I feel like everything can be done on your own in your own time. But people are just so consumed with work. Like I said, the opposite of me is out there, working, being consumed with nonsense, watching TV because you don't want to explore who you are, because you don't like what you're doing, but you don't want to admit to yourself that you fucked up and made the wrong choice. But in reality, you didn't make the right choice. You didn't make the wrong choice. You made the right choice for yourself at the time. It just happens that that choice is no longer correct for you, that there is something more out there for you, that there is something bigger waiting for you. But you have to embrace the fact that you could be wrong. I like to say the 4 magic words, or I could be wrong. Be wrong about everything. I could be wrong about everything. I could be wrong about this reading. I mean, it means something to me, but I don't think I'm wrong about that, because it's working. but what I'm saying is that people themselves, they find themselves caught up in these cycles, these karmic cycles of life, and they fail to realize that sometimes that as hard as their life is and as bad as they like to make everyone feel around them based on this shitty life that they've got, they could change it at any minute. You could do whatever you want. If you want things to change, it's up to you to change them. Like, even any one of these aspects, any of these concepts that were brought up from the cards, they relate to me, and I can rewire them, manipulate them, and change them around however I see fit, at whatever time I see fit. There was a time in my life I didn't realize I could do that, and that was when I felt I related more to the people out there than to myself. I was so busy trying to be one of them that I started to lose my mind. And it took some time to get it back. A lot of fucking work. So I like what I do, which is why I bring up the psychology stuff all the time, which is why I like to... See, I have this philosophy that I give myself permission to judge people sometimes. Maybe not verbally, maybe not. Not unless they deserve it. Judge not, yet lest ye be judged. I live by that code. Because the way I look at it is that I am capable of fully judging myself for anything I've done. Openly. Very openly. I love when people criticize me, because it's my favorite part about it, because you know what, you're right. I did do that. I did act that way. I did do those things. I did exactly what you think I did. But the reasoning behind why I did them is not what you think. So I think that's a valuable trait to have, is to be able to look back on yourself and appreciate and actually love the mistakes that you made in the past, because if it wasn't for those mistakes, if you never made the mistake, you would never experience why you'll never learn the lesson of why to not do it again, because there was an effect. That cause had an effect, potentially on someone else, and do you want to have that happen again? It's up to you. There's no right or wrong. I just don't like doing things a certain way. So anyway, I'm getting... It's already like an hour and a half. So you got things you have to do. I don't. Finally is the death card. I pulled 2 already while we were having our little chat. And death, what do we see death as? Is rebirth, the end of something, the end of a cycle, the end of one thing in the beginning of another thing. Now, I have several things in my life that are actually coming to an end right now, which is fantastic, which means that there are some new things that are coming around, which I'm excited to see how they are nurtured from this point forward. By studying karma, I don't mean I go out and I take measurements and with beakers and shit. No, I document my life, and I see how, and I document all my changes. It's like a journal, I guess. But I wrote, over the past 6 months, I wrote 7 of them, so they're pretty fucking long. But the point of the experiment of what I was doing was to see if what I wanted was capable. If I was capable of producing this thing, this idea, of making this existence a reality. And after 7 months, very close. It's not exactly the way I envisioned it, but it is very close. Close enough that if it's anything like what it's leading up to, it's better than what I was expecting. And all of it was due to putting in a lot of work and putting a lot of effort and changing all of these things with myself, and the cards helped out tremendously to help me dig through things, when I say dig through my mind, and to explore the aspects of myself that were holding me back from doing the things that I wanted to do. What did I want to do? I'm doing it right now. I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do right now. Not in the environment that I was envisioning, granted. 7 months ago I was hoping to be in a much better place than this right now, but this isn't bad. I can handle this. This is actually pretty fucking relaxing. Oh my god. Very relaxing. It's the mental stuff that fucking drives you nuts. But, so we're on death. So death could be... What is it telling us? I mean, is it reminding us that these things that we're working for are just the next stage of our evolution until the next one? Could be. This could be a cyclical story telling us that we need to put some more work into ourselves and into fine-tuning things so that once we get what we want and it's time for that to end, we'll be ready for the next incarnation of who we want to be. Because people change all the time. I change all the time. I like to change. I like to wire and rewire things all over the place. This thing, this meat suit, stays the same. It's the operating system that I like to fuck around with. So, the first card we got on it was Car Chronalis. That's when I have to use the book on this guy. I always fucking forget him. I've been trying to... Okay. Oh, this is weird. So, I'm trying to see how this relates. Okay, so yeah, we had come to the conclusion this may mean the end of our cycle that we just went through. Maybe this is just a reminder that the cycle that we are coming out of is about to end. Or maybe what it's telling us is that in order for this current cycle to end, we need to figure all this shit out. And some of the ways in which to do this might be this, which basically this card is saying to find out the secrets of others, to find out who people are, but not use it against them. Use it to an advantage. Use it to learn more, because when you learn the secrets of others, you can, like I was saying before about when I met my friend the other night, you can integrate and learn from them. And that's what I see here, is this learn from secrets. Doesn't mean be a fucking spy and be nosy. No. Get to know people, get to know them, and understand what makes them tick, because there might be something in here on them that you want to kind of put into you, because it might enhance your experience. You ever read the book, The Necroscope? The book's been popping up in my head a lot lately. It's a really cool book about this guy who can speak to the dead. Well, he envisions the dead speaking to him in his mind, but they actually do, and they teach him things, and he learned from them. It's just, I don't know, it just popped in my head. I've been meaning on reading it again. But anyway, learning from people is just that. It's seeing what they have to say, and sometimes even when those conversations seem mundane, pay attention to how they relate to you, because sometimes the things people say have a lot more meaning than what you think they do. But sometimes it's better to talk to people to talk about the things that you enjoy talking about, because sometimes you can learn an aspect about them that you don't know. You don't know, because you're looking for a treasure of some sort. So I'm sorry, that's how I just segued into that. This is Barbados. Barbados is a huntsman, also followed around by an invisible orchestra. But he's the hunter. He goes out looking for treasure. He goes out looking for pelts and whatever hunters do. But he's looking for a very specific thing. He's I'm just trying to recreate this in my head, because I'm having a hard time relating to this, and it might take me a second, so bear with me. I really do appreciate you sitting here for an hour and 45 minutes if you actually did. If you didn't, it's fine. This is more therapy anyway. So in order for this to end, by learning the secrets of others, finding the treasure, maybe what we're doing is, how I can see that being interpreted, is maybe we are coming to the end of our cycles, coming out renewed, rebirth, being reborn with the new knowledge that we have obtained from the people we have been experiencing throughout our journey. Like I was saying with the Fool's Journey, you start as the Fool and you come around back to the beginning where you utilize all the